Care and compassion. Those are two hallmarks of the love that family caregivers bestow on their loved one. Who doesn't want to be thought of as loving, caring, and compassionate? And what caregiver doesn't strive for it? Caring for a loved one can be one of the most rewarding yet challenging roles we ever take on. Whether you're caring for an aging parent, a child with special needs, or a spouse with a chronic illness, the demands can be overwhelming. Most caregivers strive to give the best care they can, even when they don't feel like it, simply because of their love and their ideals of kindness, generosity, and the sense that they are doing what is noble and just. It's what they do. And their energy is spent on their loved one. That's their focus. There's a lot of available information on how to provide care, the mechanics of doing all of the duties to attend to health and well-being. But there's much less information on how caregivers can care for themselves so that they can manage their emotions and their mindset, energy, and the life changes that they are going through. I would argue that there is really more than one person in the caregiving relationship who needs and deserves care. There are at least two: the designated care recipient and the caregivers who are the designated providers of care. Because when caregiving extends past the initial beginning phase of care and it becomes needed over a longer term, the person or persons providing the bulk of care experience such difficult physical, mental, emotional, and social demands that they too need consistent compassion, expressions of love and respect, and supports in order to feel good physically and emotionally, and to avoid burnout. Who shows you love and compassion? Whether or not you have loving, supportive, and compassionate family or friends who care for you and who love you, you can guarantee that you experience kindness and love for yourself. Well, how do you do that? Well, in this episode, we are going to talk about a powerful way you can do that for yourself. This is the Caregivers Careport, a podcast dedicated to the health and well-being of family caregivers. It is sponsored by Dr. Corbell Arbs and Scissortail Health Coaching, offering personalized top-tier coaching for caregivers so that the caregiver can thrive while managing their emotions, mindset, and life changes during and after caregiving. If you would like to book a complimentary 30-minute session with Dr. Arbs to explore what health coaching might do for you, go to scissortailhealthcoaching.com or click the links listed in the podcast information at the end of the episode description. So, are you curious about how you can ensure that you are loved, respected, cared for, and shown loved, irregardless of your current family or social situation? Well, it's a great topic. Let's dive into it. The first key to bringing more love and compassion into your own life is to love yourself. You're always with yourself and you're responsible for yourself. So make a commitment that you will treat yourself with love. And one concrete and profound way to give love to yourself is by showing yourself compassion. Compassionate self-care. Now, compassionate self-care is more than just taking breaks or pampering yourself occasionally. It's about consistently treating yourself with the same kindness and understanding that you would offer to a dear friend. It means recognizing your own needs and limitations and responding to them with empathy and care. And one of the important and really effective ways you can show yourself compassion is by turning down the volume and quieting your self-criticism. Quieting your self-criticism. It sounds simple, and it is in theory. But when we are caregiving, we have times when we are in distress. And when we are in distress, that's when we often become self-critical. I should have done this. Why was I like that? I hate that I said that. And on with the coulda, woulda, shouldas. I'm stupid. I have no patience. I'm really awful at this. I don't know why I even try. It's as though we can improve ourselves by yelling insults at ourselves, being harsh. But in reality, harsh accusations and criticism don't work. They just get us mired in feelings of inadequacy, guilt, depression, and discouragement. Our beating on ourselves just adds an internal burden to the external challenges that are already stressing us out. We end up feeling pushed on from all sides, even from the inside of ourselves, and we feel shame and guilt. So let's look at self-criticism. Let's take a close look at some of the key characteristics of self-criticism so that we can recognize it and name it when it happens. Self-criticism often shows up as a constant barrage of negative thoughts and self-talk. People may berate themselves for mistakes or perceived shortcomings or failures. And it may be linked to perfectionism at times. Self-critics often hold themselves to impossibly high standards and may see any deviation from perfection as a failure. They may fear making mistakes and see them as evidence of their own inadequacy. Also, when something goes wrong, self-critics tend to immediately blame themselves. This persistent self-criticism can really erode self-esteem and self-worth, leading to insecurities and self-doubt. And it may be so discouraging that some people may even avoid challenges or situations where they might fail or be judged. It becomes too scary to even try. And importantly, studies have shown that self-criticism is associated with a negative mental health outcome with increased levels of anxiety, depression, and stress. So, do you do any of those things? I know sometimes I do, and I really have to be vigilant about it when I'm stressed because I tend to be a perfectionist about my performance. I might say critical and even unkind things to myself that I would never say to another person. We are often our meanest critics, and that kind of self-criticism just leads to all kinds of bad feelings, which negatively impact not only our own health, but also our relationships. As adults, when things go wrong, we are the ones in charge of motivating and encouraging ourselves to do better. So how should we coach ourselves so we can do better? What works? After all, don't we want to do better next time? Well, we have a very powerful ability we can put to use to help ourselves do better. We have the gift of words, and how we use them, how we talk to ourselves, can make or break us. The conversations that we have with ourselves can either nurture or wound us. They can help us to grow and shine, or they can cause us to just wither. Let's look at 3 types of conversations that we can have with ourselves in the midst of failures, disappointments, and losses. Let's look at self-criticism, self-accountability, and self-compassion, and how these types of dialogues in our mind either help or hurt us. So let's look at self-criticism. So What is it exactly? It's a psychological habit that causes us to attribute mistakes we make to permanent personality or character flaws in ourselves. It attacks who we are and judges us to be bad or defective in our core beings. For example, here's a self-critical dialogue. I got angry and raised my voice at Dad tonight. I should have been more patient. I'm a failure at taking care of him. I can't even be nice to my own father. I don't even have the ability to be truly loving. Now, that kind of dialogue is very different than constructive criticism. Where constructive criticism is helpful and well-intended, self-criticism isn't. Self-criticism focuses more on the person than the action and the facts of the situation, and it ends up being more harsh and destructive than positive and productive. Constructive criticism focuses realistically on the situation and the action. It does not demean the person. And let's next look at self-accountability, because sometimes people think, well, if I'm not self-critical, I'm not being accountable for what I did. But let's think about that as we go forward here. Self-accountability entails accepting responsibility for your actions by taking a very objective, honest look at specific elements that went wrong. For example, I yelled at Dad tonight. I didn't take any breaks today and I was tired. Tomorrow, I will think of ways that I can have some time to myself so that I can relax and do something that makes me happy. I'll see if doing those things during the day help me to have more patience with Dad at night. Self-accountability is a healthier response that separates who you are from the action that you did. And this practice helps you identify and acknowledge your responsibilities so that you can establish expectations, make amends, and draft more effective action plans on what you're going to do next time. It does not attack you personally. It supports you in your efforts to reach your goals. And thirdly, let's look at self-compassion. Self-compassion is an awareness of your suffering combined with a desire to alleviate it. When we feel compassion for our pain, we want to heal it. We don't want to just drive another thorn into our side. We want to make improvements that help us suffer less. We're motivating ourselves not by fear of self-punishment or criticism, but by the desire to be healthy and well. Not only does self-compassion help us act in ways conducive to our self-being, but it simultaneously creates the perfect circumstances to make that happen. We work on setting ourselves up for success. It recognizes that failure is inevitable at times, and it's not a cause of concern, but rather it's a powerful teacher. Self-compassion allows us to see our weaknesses in a safe and nurturing way, and then move forward. Here's an example of compassionate self-talk. I yelled at Dad tonight. I'm going to choose not to dwell on that incident and I'll move on. I'm human and I understand I will sometimes fall short. But there are also some things I did well today, and I'm proud of that because I did do them well and I succeeded in those things. Tomorrow I'll get up and I'll do my best to be patient. I notice that when I tend to snap at him, I'm tired and frustrated usually, even before I lose my patience. I'll seize opportunities tomorrow to meet my own needs so that I will feel more rested, and I think then I'll have more patience when Dad gets on my nerves. So let's look at some other examples of replacing self-criticism with self-compassion. Self-criticism says, I'm a failure. I feel like I can't do anything right. But self-compassion says, everyone fails sometimes. What can I learn from this and improve next time? Self-criticism would say, I'm just not good enough. What's the point of trying? But self-compassion says, humans are imperfect by nature and we all have flaws. What is something I enjoyed about myself today? Self-criticism says, I can't believe I did that. I'm so ashamed and embarrassed. I can't stop thinking about it. Self-compassion says, everyone makes mistakes. What advice would I give to a friend in this situation? Self-criticism would say, what I'm going through is so painful. It's just too much for anyone to bear. I just can't do this anymore. Self-compassion would say, is there anything I can do to take care of myself in this moment? Now, I've known many caregivers who have been a little reluctant to replace self-criticism with self-compassion. They think it may just be a way of letting yourself off the hook. Hard workers fear that if they don't criticize themselves, they will fall into a pattern of mediocrity and just let themselves go. But here's the thing. Self-compassion doesn't demand that you abandon accountability, but it demands that you show yourself grace on occasions when you fall short of your goals. Research has shown that self-criticism is damaging and counterproductive, but compassionate accountability helps you to do better and feel better. And when you unite accountability with kindness and mercy towards yourself, you will be more successful at reaching your goals and you will have more inner peace, confidence, and happiness. And self-compassionate people are more oriented toward personal growth and more likely to formulate specific plans for reaching their goals. They're not as afraid of failing. They are just as likely as others to set high standards for themselves, but they aren't as upset when they don't meet their goals. And research also suggests that self-compassion is strongly related to psychological well-being, personal initiative, motivation, accountability, increased happiness and optimism and connectedness, as well as decreased anxiety, depression, neurotic perfectionism, and ruminating on failure. When you don't beat yourself up after failing to reach a goal, it preserves your motivation and your confidence, your belief that you are capable, and your self-respect. You're more resilient. And a recent study even found that when self-compassionate people are forced to give up on a goal that's important to them, and that often happens to caregivers, they tend to refocus their energy on a new and different goal instead of just throwing in the towel. So, how do you turn off the self-criticism so that you can give yourself more love and compassion? Well, oftentimes self-criticism is just a habit. And one of the best ways to change a habit is to replace it with something else. Here are the steps you can take to get from self-criticism to self-compassion. First of all, you want to make a commitment that that's something you want, that is important to you, and that you're going to work toward it. And then you work toward building your motivation to work on it and to persevere with it, because it doesn't just happen overnight. It's a process. So you can imagine how you would feel if you were more compassionate to yourself. What difference would that make in your mood and in your life, in your caregiving, and in your relationships? The more you think about the benefits you'll receive, the more motivated you'll be, and the more likely it is that you'll be able to stick with it and actually make the change. Then cultivate self-awareness. Recognize and spot how both self-criticism and self-compassion may show up for you in your life. Become aware of your self-critical conversations and tendencies, and do this without judgment. Just be curious. Notice if your opinion of yourself is contingent on external things like succeeding or how you look to others, dwelling on your thoughts, keeping track of your failures and mistakes, or treating yourself as if you are the enemy. Watch for whether you're punishing yourself for not being good enough. It's like being upset that a plant didn't grow and bloom like you had hoped, so you tore it out of its pot and just threw it away because it didn't live up to your expectations. Recognize the situations that trigger thoughts of criticism and notice when you give yourself compassion. Self-compassion looks like courage and confidence and self-respect, and it sounds like reassurance and understanding. It gets curious and spends time with gentleness and undivided attention, getting to know your source of self-criticism. What sets you off? It wants to know your fears and your disappointments. So that's one of the key things to figure out. Acknowledge them and then work with them. It acknowledges that there may be feelings of shame and of not being good enough, that there may be sadness that you're trying to avoid. Sometimes it's just easier to be angry at yourself than to feel pain and sadness. Self-compassion says we are all imperfect and so am I. And you'll see yourself telling yourself things like, well, I'm just human. I make mistakes like we all do at times. And sometimes bad things happen. And it happened. Self-compassion guides you to ask, what can I do in this moment to care for and motivate myself? From a place of self-love and care, not from a place of meanness and self-criticism. Helps you move forward. You might be telling yourself, I don't need to wait to be loved and appreciated by myself until I'm better or smarter or more successful. It's like noticing that the plant didn't bloom as you had hoped, but instead of throwing it out, you got curious about its needs for water, sunlight, and soil, and set about to give it optimal conditions so it could have a chance to thrive. Self-compassion does that for yourself. It feels like patience, support, serenity, and self-respect. And it feels like unconditional love that tells you perfection isn't necessary in order to love, value, and respect yourself. Also, one of the important things to do as you're making this change is to think about treating yourself as a friend. Imagine how you would support and comfort a close friend who's going through a tough time. Apply that same kindness, understanding, and encouragement to yourself. Do not be harshly judgmental of yourself. Instead of attacking and berating yourself for personal shortcomings, offer yourself warmth and unconditional acceptance. Again, just acknowledge that humans are imperfect and we all make mistakes and we all have serious life challenges. Imperfection is part of life. And when you remember that, you will feel less isolated when you're in pain. Then, when you recognize that you're feeling pain and disappointment, say to yourself, this is hard. Just being able to say that and acknowledge it can facilitate a kind and warm response from yourself, such as, what can I do to take care of myself right now? And that lessens self-blame. Also, use positive affirmations. Replace the self-critical thoughts with positive affirmations like, I'm doing my best in this really difficult situation. Or you could even say, I'm worthy of love and self-care, and I'm doing my best. Practice self-care. Prioritize self-care activities that nourish your physical and emotional well-being. This can include things like exercise, good nutrition, activities that you enjoy, being with friends that you enjoy, or using relaxation techniques. You can seek support from friends, family, or a coach or therapist when you're struggling. And many people find journaling and writing about their experiences, thoughts, and emotions from a compassionate perspective can really help them process their feelings and practice self-compassion. Sometimes if you're having angry or disappointed feelings towards yourself, putting those feelings into words can help you work through them and make it less likely that you will act them out towards yourself. Remember that self-compassion and letting go of harsh, destructive, and self-criticism takes time to develop. Be patient with yourself and understand that we all have moments of self-criticism. But by consistently applying these strategies, you can cultivate a more loving and compassionate relationship with yourself, which will build your resilience and lead to greater self-respect, happiness, and confidence. And the benefits you will enjoy will spill over to your care partner and the other people you touch. And just recall for yourself that we're with ourselves no matter where we go, no matter what we're doing. We are a constant companion for ourselves. And any time that we really need love, support, and compassion, we can be there for ourselves. So give these suggestions a try. They've worked for many others, and I bet they will help you feel more relaxed and happy as you care for your loved one. If you would like to consult with me or inquire about health coaching, I would love to hear from you. Click the links below for my email or website to schedule a private one-to-one phone call with me. And the call is complimentary. Beginning today, gift yourself with love and compassion. You are worthy, and you are making a difference in the life of your care partner and in the world. You are an icon of generosity for the rest of the world. You are worthy of love and self-compassion. Until next time, this is Dr. Corbell Arps for the Caregivers Care Porch. Take care.